In a stunning turn of events, the unthinkable is happening. The dark horses are rising, and FIFA's biggest fear is becoming reality.
One ball, one whistle, and a tournament that no longer looks like the one FIFA spent 4 years selling you. This is something that has genuinely never happened in the history of the Men's World Cup. Not in 1950, not in 1966, not in 2002 when Senegal and South Korea kicked the door in. This is bigger. This is structural. And if you think the 48-team expansion was just a cash grab that would be swallowed by the usual suspects, you have no idea what is already happening inside the dressing rooms of teams who are not even supposed to be on the plane. Let me set the scene. We are deep into the group stage of the 2026 World Cup. The first edition spread across 3 host nations, 16 cities, and a format that nobody, not even the men who designed it, fully trusted. Mexico City, Toronto, Kansas City, Atlanta, Inglewood. The matches have come in waves, and the waves have not been kind to the favorites. Argentina are still standing. France are still standing. Germany, Spain, Brazil, England, all still standing. But around them, something else is rising. DR Congo are through. Cape Verde, a nation of barely 500,000 people, are through. Canada, the co-hosts who 8 years ago could not buy a goal at this level, are breaking their own records every 72 hours. And the man who said before kickoff that this tournament would belong to the brave had no idea how right he was. Because the brave are now 1 win away from knocking out a giant. Now on the surface, this looks like chaos. A bloated tournament, too many teams, too many minnows. The World Cup watered down for television money. That is the line FIFA's critics have repeated for 3 years. But the second you look behind the curtain, the picture completely changes. Because this is not dilution. This is democratization. And it is the exact scenario FIFA quietly feared the most when they signed off on 48. Start with the results. DR Congo, ranked outside the global top 50 when qualification began, have already taken points off a European seed. Cape Verde, a debutant, walked into their opening match and did not just compete, they dictated. Their captain, in the post-match interview, looked straight down the lens and said, and I am quoting him, "We are not here to participate. We are here to embarrass somebody." Read that carefully because it's extraordinary. A nation that did not exist as a footballing entity 30 years ago is now openly threatening to send a former champion home. That is not a Cinderella line, that is a warning. And then there is Canada, the co-hosts. The team Davies and Buchanan have dragged from punchline to genuine threat. Their attacking output through the group stage is up nearly 5-fold compared with 2022 in Qatar. 5-fold. Sit with that. A team that scored 2 goals in their entire previous World Cup is now scoring 2.5. On home soil, in front of crowds that have not stopped singing since the opening ceremony. Then there is the detail that really tells you how far gone the old order is. Look at the expected goals numbers across the so-called lesser confederations. African sides are out creating European sides in open play. CONCACAF teams beyond Mexico and the United States are pressing higher, recovering possession faster, and converting at rates that should not be possible against opponents 40 places above them in the rankings. This is not luck. This is not one hot week. This is a generation of players who grew up in academies in Kinshasa, in Praia, in Toronto, in San Jose, watching the Champions League on their phones and refusing to believe the gap was real. And the gap, it turns out, was never as real as we were told. Think about that for a second. For 60 years we have been sold a hierarchy. Europe and South America at the top. Africa as the eternal next World Cup. Asia as the curiosity. CONCACAF is Mexico and 31 holidays. That hierarchy was built brick by brick by brick by a system that gave 13 European nations a guaranteed seat at the table and told everyone else to fight for scraps. Expand the table to 48, and suddenly the scraps start eating the steak. In the entire history of the Men's World Cup, no African nation had ever reached a semi-final. None. Cameroon in 1990, Senegal in 2002, Ghana in 2010, Morocco in 2022, all stopped at the quarter-final wall. 4 attempts, 4 heartbreaks. Until now. DR Congo are one result, one single 90 minutes, from changing that sentence forever. Cape Verde, in their first tournament, are statistically the best performing debutant since Croatia in 1998. A team that finished 3rd. and Canada have already equaled the deepest CONCACAF run by a non-Mexican side in 4 decades. 1. 5-fold. Forever. Now the question becomes who, and what, and when. Because the knockout bracket is not kind to romance. DR Congo's projected path runs through a European heavyweight, then potentially a South American one. Cape Verde could meet Spain in the round of 16. Canada have a draw that on paper says they should be grateful to be here, but anyone who has watched Jesse Marsch's press conferences over the last fortnight knows gratitude is not on the menu. He said it himself after the second group game, and I am quoting him directly. "We did not come here to make friends with history. We came here to write it." That is not a co-host trying to enjoy the ride. That is a manager telling Belgium, or Portugal, or whoever lands in his path, that the welcome mat has been pulled. And over the next 3 weeks, the calendar gets more brutal, not less. The favorites have to win 4 straight knockout games. The underdogs only have to win 1 to become legend. That asymmetry, that is the part FIFA's broadcast partners did not fully calculate. Because every time a Cape Verde or a DR Congo survives another round, the global audience grows, the betting markets melt, and the narrative slips further from the script that was written in Zurich. Let me be fair for a second, because this channel does not deal in fantasy. It is entirely possible the Giants reassert themselves the moment the knockouts begin. Argentina with Messi in what is almost certainly his final tournament. France with a front line that on its day is unplayable. Spain, the reigning European champions, who have looked the most complete side here by some distance. The historical pattern says the favorites win. 21 of 22 World Cups have been lifted by 8 nations. The data does not lie. The trophy almost always goes home to the same houses. But that is exactly what makes this a nightmare instead of a footnote. Because for the first time, the path to that trophy runs through teams who do not respect the hierarchy, do not believe the rankings, and do not care about the brand. A giant can lose. A giant has already nearly lost. And once the first one falls, the dam breaks. This was never supposed to be a tournament about Cape Verde. It was supposed to be a coronation, a 48-team victory lap with the same 4 or 5 names on the semi-final boards. Instead, it has become a stress test of every assumption modern football was built on. The academies, the rankings, the seeding, the TV money. The idea that geography decides destiny. Brick after brick after brick, the old wall is being chipped at by players whose names half the commentators still cannot pronounce. And every brick that falls a little louder than the one before. When you spend 60 years telling the world that only 8 nations are allowed to win, you do not get to act surprised when 40 of them stop listening. Now, I want to hear from you. Was the 48-team expansion the best thing that ever happened to international football? Or is this the moment the World Cup loses the prestige that made it the World Cup in the first place? Drop your verdict in the comments. Tell me which dark horse you are backing, DR Congo, Cape Verde, Canada, or a name I have not even mentioned. Because somebody in that group is about to do something we will be talking about in 30 years. Subscribe, because we are still 2 rounds away from a final that might not have a single pre-tournament favorite in it. And we will be covering every collapse, every miracle, every coach who does not survive the week. Trust me, this will not be the last one. The brave were promised this tournament. And for the first time, the brave are taking it. I'll see you in the next one.